Four voices in support of capitalism. A defence of markets, innovation, freedom, and human potential. Capitalism is a topic guaranteed to start an argument on any university campus. To some, it represents greed, inequality, and exploitation. To others, it represents freedom, innovation, and opportunity. Entire generations have grown up surrounded by technologies, comforts, and opportunities created by capitalism, while at the same time they are being taught to distrust it. Before condemning capitalism, we should accept a highly pertinent fact. No economic system in human history has lifted more people out of poverty, extended life expectancy, accelerated scientific progress, or expanded individual human choice on the scale that capitalism has achieved. Yes, capitalism has its flaws. Wealth can become concentrated. Financial crises occur. Consumerism can become excessive. Because of this, on campuses, to attack capitalism is to signal virtue. But the real question is not whether capitalism is perfect. It is whether any alternative has produced greater prosperity, freedom, innovation, and human flourishing. So far, the answer appears to be a resounding no. Capitalism succeeds because it aligns with something fundamental in human nature. The desire to improve our lives, create value, solve problems, and pursue opportunities. It channels ambition, competition, and creativity into productive activity. Most importantly, capitalism allows individuals, not governments, to make the countless decisions that shape economic life. Today, I want to defend capitalism through the ideas of four men that have impressed me: Adam Smith, Joseph Schumpeter, Friedrich von Hayek, and Milton Friedman. Together, they explain why capitalism remains the most dynamic and successful system ever developed for generating wealth, innovation, coordination, and liberty. And at the end, I want to explore something even more important: why the future of capitalism may belong not to large bureaucratic states, but to mobile individuals, competitive nations, and economic freedom itself. I begin with Adam Smith and one of the most famous passages in economics. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. Smith's insight was revolutionary. Human societies do not require perfect altruism to function successfully. Ordinary motivations, self-interest, ambition, enterprise, and the desire for improvement can unintentionally produce benefits for society as a whole. An idea that has become known as the invisible hand. Smith further wrote, by pursuing his own interest, he frequently promotes that of the society more effectually than when he really intends to promote it. This is one of capitalism's greatest strengths. Individuals pursuing opportunity creates goods, services, jobs, investment, and innovation, often without ever intending to advance society. No central planner designed the smartphone economy. No ministry invented social media platforms. No committee created global e-commerce. These developments emerged spontaneously from millions of individual decisions. Capitalism transforms dispersed ambition into collective prosperity. Smith explained how capitalism creates wealth Schumpeter went and explained how it creates progress. He famously argued, "This process of creative destruction is the essential fact about capitalism. Capitalism is not static. It constantly reinvents itself. New technologies destroy old industries. New companies replace established giants. Innovation disrupts stability." The opening up of a new markets and the organizational development illustrate the same process of industrial mutation that incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one. This process can be uncomfortable. Jobs disappear. Entire industries decline. Economic change creates uncertainty. But creative disruption is also the reason we have modern medicine, artificial intelligence, smartphones, global communications, instant access to knowledge, etc., etc. A stagnant economy may feel safer, but stagnation eventually leads to decline. Capitalism progresses precisely because it is willing to disrupt itself. Another profound defense of capitalism comes from Friedrich von Hayek. In The Road to Serfdom, Hayek argues that economic freedom is inseparable from political freedom. Free markets and capitalism disperse power. Central planning concentrates it. When governments control economic life, they inevitably gain increasing control over individual lives, what people produce, consume, and ultimately what they think and say. Hayek believed this concentration of power threatens liberty itself. But Hayek's most important contribution may be his explanation of knowledge. In his essay, The Use of Knowledge in Society, Hayek writes, "The knowledge of the circumstances of which we must make use never exists in concentrated or integrated form. No government institution or expert committee possesses all the information required to run a complex economy. That knowledge is fragmented among millions of individuals. Consumers know what they want. Entrepreneurs spot opportunities. Workers understand local conditions. Investors assess risk. Markets coordinate this decentralized knowledge through prices. Prices communicate scarcity, demand, and changing conditions far more efficiently than bureaucracies ever could." Hayek beautifully captures this process. The marvel is that in a case like that of a scarcity of one raw material, without an order being issued, tens of thousands of people are made to use the material or its produce more sparingly. They move in the right direction. Order emerges spontaneously, not through coercion, but through voluntary interaction. Milton Friedman extended this defense of capitalism into the modern world. In Capitalism and Freedom, he wrote, "Economic freedom is an essential requisite for political freedom." Friedman recognized that economic power and political power are deeply connected. If governments dominate economic life, they gain enormous influence over individuals. By contrast, capitalism decentralizes power across millions of people and institutions. No single authority controls society. Friedman also emphasized the moral significance of voluntary exchange. He said, "The great virtue of a free market system is that it does not care what color people are. It does not care what their religion is. It only cares whether they can produce something you want to buy." Markets reward value creation more than status, class, or inherited identity. A customer buys your product because it works, not because they approve of your politics, race, religion, or social background. That impersonal fairness is one reason capitalism has historically undermined rigid hierarchies and expanded opportunity. Those four voices differ in emphasis, but they agree on something fundamental. Capitalism is extraordinarily effective at improving human life. Capitalism has dramatically reduced global poverty. It has increased life expectancy, expanded access to education, accelerated technological progress, created unprecedented prosperity, empowered billions of people. Now, critics often focus exclusively on capitalism's failures while ignoring its achievements. But modern life itself is evidence of capitalism's productive power. The laptop, the internet, air travel, modern healthcare, streaming services, global supply chains, instant communication, etc., etc. These are not accidents of history. They are the products of decentralized innovation, competition, entrepreneurship, and free exchange. However, capitalism is now entering a new phase. Technology is making individuals more mobile, more independent, and less tied to traditional nation states. This is where ideas from my books, The New Barbarian Manifesto and Flight of the Golden Geese, become highly relevant. In the New Barbarian Manifesto, I argue that the modern world is witnessing the rise of highly mobile global citizens, individuals who increasingly choose where to live, work, invest, and pay taxes. Talent is becoming geographically independent, and governments are having to compete for productive citizens in the same way businesses compete for customers. In Flight of the Golden Geese, written with my friend David Lesperance, we explore how excessive taxation, regulation, and political hostility towards wealth creators can drive entrepreneurs, investors, and innovators elsewhere. Capital, and increasingly talent itself, is mobile. The lesson is simple. If societies punish success too aggressively, successful people eventually leave. And when innovators leave, prosperity often leaves with them. In the 21st century, countries that embrace entrepreneurship, innovation, they lower barriers to enterprise and economic freedom, are likely to thrive. Those that embrace bureaucracy, overregulation, and ideological hostility towards markets and wealth may struggle. Capitalism is not perfect. No system designed by imperfect human beings ever will be. It requires laws, ethical norms, competition, and civic responsibility. Markets must operate within a framework of trust and the rule of law. But despite all of its flaws, capitalism remains the greatest engine of prosperity, innovation, human advancement that has ever been discovered. It works because it reflects reality. Human beings are ambitious. Knowledge is decentralized. Innovation requires freedom. Progress requires experimentation. Prosperity emerges from voluntary cooperation. And perhaps most importantly, capitalism gives individuals the freedom to shape their own lives. As we confront the challenges of the future, artificial intelligence, technological disruption, environmental pressures, demographic change, and global competition, the answer is not less creativity, less freedom, or more central control. The answer is more human ingenuity. And no system in history has unleashed human ingenuity more effectively than capitalism. That is why capitalism endures, not because it is flawless, but because it works. Thank you.